In this video, we are going to talk about ions. So previously, we discussed atoms. And atoms can carry a charge by varying the number of electrons they contain. And this is a very common occurrence, and we're going to need a special name for this. So an atom with unequal number of protons and electrons is called an ion. And there are two main types of ions that we're going to look at. The first is a cation, and a cation is a positive ion. That means that the number of protons is going to be greater than the number of electrons. And we also have anions. And in an anion, we have a negative ion, which means the number of electrons is greater than the number of protons. So we can look at some examples of various ions that we might see. So if we have sodium, and we have sodium 23, which has an atomic number of 11, we can look that the number of protons for this atom is equal to 11. The number of neutrons is going to be 23 minus 11, or 12. And the number of electrons is going to be equal to 11. This is because this is a sodium atom where there is not a charge. But if we look at sodium plus ion, where we indicate that we have a +1 charge, which means that the number of protons are going to be greater than the number of electrons. If we look at all the subatomic particles for this particular, in this case, cation, the number of protons are still going to be equal to 11. The number of neutrons are going to be 23 minus 11, or 12, but the number of electrons in this case are different because we have a +1 charge. This indicates we have one more proton than we do electron. So the number of electrons for this particular cation is going to be 10, which agrees with the statement that we made for a cation, the number of protons are greater than the number of electrons. Now let's look at one more example. If we have a nitrogen 15 atom, we have 7 protons, 8 neutrons, and 7 electrons. Again, this is an atom. The number of protons and electrons are going to be equal and are going to be the same. If, on the other hand, we look at a nitrogen 3- anion, we're going to have a varying number of electrons compared to a nitrogen atom. So the number of protons for nitrogen is always going to be 7, which is its atomic number. The number of neutrons are going to be 15 minus 7 in this case, or 8. And the number of electrons for this nitrogen 3- anion has to be 3 more than the number of protons. So the number of electrons here are going to be 10. Okay? So in this case, we have a sodium cation and a nitrogen anion. And as we go through this course, we're going to look at the charges of each of these cations and anions and figure out if there's a way that we could potentially predict what those charges will be. But for now, we need a convention to make sure that we know how to how to look at these, and we need to come up with the vocabulary of how to communicate with a chemist. So in the next video, we're then going to look at something called isotopes when we vary the number of neutrons.